I don't know who still needs to hear this in the year 2024, but stop smoking dirt pickles. It baffles me that there's people out there that every time they go to smoke some delicious green, they gotta wrap it in doo-doo paper. It's literally the worst way to smoke. It's the worst way to get high. You're taking one of the best things on the planet and one of the worst things on the planet and adding them together. What are you doing? Now, you've definitely heard me talk about this before, but there's a lot of people that have reached out to me after seeing one of my videos where I talk about blunts, and they say, oh my God, thank you. I didn't realize what I was doing smoking blunts every day. I went out and I got a pipe, I got a glass piece, and now my lungs are thanking me. It's so much easier to get high, and I'm feeling better overall. I've had so many people reach out to me with a message telling me how they got off blunts, switched to a glass piece, switched to something else, and they've noticed a tremendous amount of benefits. So I gotta make it a point to say it every now and then. Stop smoking dirt pickles. Blunts are the worst way to smoke. You got doo-doo paper around your weed. What are you doing? Now, I'm not saying this having no experience smoking blunts. One of the first ways I ever got high, we were doing the blunt wraps, we were doing gravity bongs, stuff that I'm like, hey, man, don't do that. I've done it. I've done it all. I've done it lots of times too. When I was first getting into smoking, that was what I thought. I just thought about blunts. I didn't really smoke a lot of weed before then, but then I had some friends introduce me to smoking blunts. And in my head, I'm like, yeah, you take the green, roll it in the tobacco, and then bada boom, you're ready to sesh. Well, when you're doing this, it's so terrible. You're adding a layer of addiction to your sesh. Now, it's true that smoking regularly can be habit forming. Some people get hooked on just smoking green. They can't stop every waking moment of the day. They got to take rips. That's totally true. But adding in tobacco to that, it just genuinely takes it to the next level. And you might dig yourself in a hole so deep that it's hard to climb out of. But I really got to say this because there's so many new stoners out there. They just want to experiment with getting high. They just want to try it for the first time. And they might not realize if they just start going with the blunts, they're just doing a blunt sesh every time. Every time they go to get high, it's blunts. They might just have this brand new tobacco addiction that they didn't think they were gonna have because they just wanted to get high. I've worked in legal shops before. I've worked with bud tenders. There's a lot of bud tenders out there that are just blunt smokers. They're smoking blunts all the time. Well, it's surprising to me because from my experience, it turns into like you have to smoke. One of the things I talk about is managing and controlling your tolerance and try not to smoke all day. But if you got a tobacco addiction, that's even harder to manage. It's harder to wait until the end of the day to light up your blunt. If you're like, bro, I need that nicotine now. I mean, unless you're just like curbing the nicotine with like cigarettes all day or something, but don't do that. Don't be a dirt pickle Danny. It blew my mind when I lived in Colorado. Some of the people that I'd sesh with, we do fat bong rips, fat dabs, huge hits. And then like, all right, bro, I'm going to go outside and smoke a cigarette. And I'm like, you can inhale more stuff into your lungs right now? What? And it really wasn't the case. They're just hooked on the nicotine. They had to get it in. What's funny to me is you ever see one of those blunt wrapping tutorials and they're like, step 1, run it under the faucet and scrub all the nasty chemicals off. Just don't smoke it. Bro, it's super thick paper loaded with chemicals. You're getting all these extra carcinogens. You're getting added flavor. And honestly, the tobacco is typically not that high of quality. Most of the wraps that you're getting out there it's not only doo-doo paper, you're getting doo-doo tear, doo-doo paper. No, bro, it's fine. You can get rid of it all. Just scrub it under the sink. Let it dry out. I gotta let it dry? If you're gonna do all that work of scrubbing it under the sink, letting it dry, just get a glass piece. There's people out there that scrub their blunts under the sink every time, and they're like, I'm not gonna get a glass piece because it's too much work to keep it clean. Right, what? Also, another thing that I think is funny is you ever at the sesh seeing somebody roll a blunt and they just start getting into it, bro. They're tonguing the crap out of it, bro. They start tonguing it all over. You see some dudes start, I know I've seen this too many times. I hate to see it, but some dudes out there are literally deep throating the blunt. They put it in their whole mouth and slide it out just to get a little bit of that saliva all over. And then they run the lighter over to dry it off. Bro, you just throated the blunt and you're trying to hand it to me? Duh, I don't want it. Don't hand me that dirt pickle, especially after you just throated it. Dudes will look you dead in your eye after they deep throated the blunt and wonder why you don't want to hit it. Bro, what? Honestly, if you plan to do a lot of regular consumption, you really like it, and you're going to be like a daily smoker, look into the cleaner ways to do it. Water filtration, vaporization. There's so many things that you can consider. But there's so many people out there that are just putting low quality weed and low quality doo-doo papers and just having like the stinkiest, nastiest sesh. Almost every time I can smell weed in public, it's bad weed and doo-doo papers. And I'm like, oh God, I feel bad for whoever that is. Anyway, come get high with me on Twitch. If you bring blunts, I'm slapping you in the face. Have a lit day, my dudes.